Today on TimesCast, a civil settlement will add $7 billion to the Madoff Victims Fund. A look back at the political repercussions of the Gulf oil spill, and giving a gift to the environment by choosing the right Christmas tree. In the largest civil forfeiture ever, the estate of Jeffrey Pickauer has agreed to pay more than $7 billion into the Madoff Settlement Fund.
Wendy, a lot of people know the name Bernie Madoff. Today we're learning something about someone named Jeffrey Pickauer. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how he figures in?
Yeah, he wasn't really a public celebrity, was he? But Jeffrey Pickauer lived in Palm Beach. He was a philanthropist. He gave a lot of money to charity. And it turns out he was worth quite a lot of money. When he died, he left a rather large estate. And that included an estate that had a lot of money that had come out of Bernie Madoff's fraud scheme. So since then, the trustee for the Madoff estate has been trying to retrieve a lot of that money. Today we have a huge settlement. $7.2 billion.
Now, is that the total amount that he is believed to have made in an ill-gotten way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As I said, the trustee on the Madoff case argues that that's the amount he took out of the Madoff accounts above and beyond what he put into them. So those were his, quote, illegal profits from the Madoff fraud.
Now, I read in our story that this is believed to be the largest, civil forfeiture ever. Is that true?
That's what they're saying. That's what prosecutors are telling us. It'd be hard to know for sure, but they're saying in judicial history, this is the biggest.
Wow. And how will that money now play into the victims' hands?
That's what's really significant here, right? There are a huge number of cases outstanding against people. There's also a sense that maybe some more settlements will be forthcoming now. But this raises the amount of money that has been retrieved closer to $9 billion. There's only been a couple $1 billion up to now. Mm-hmm. So you've got a significant chunk of money to start distributing to people.
Continuing our look back at 2010, the repercussions of the BP oil spill.
The biggest environmental story of 2010 was the Gulf of Mexico oil spill, one of the biggest environmental stories ever. BP, the company that was primarily responsible for the spill, took a big hit in the court of public opinion. But so too did the Obama administration. In fact, the strangest thing about this spill was probably the way that it hurt a Democratic president who came into office as no friend of the big oil companies.
These are the tar balls that they're talking about.
Recall that in the 2008 campaign, President Obama's vision of America's energy future involved windmills and solar panels more than oil wells. But under pressure from the Republicans, with their cries of drill, baby, drill, he ultimately pledged to open more of America's shores to oil drilling. He tried to make good on that promise in March of 2010, announcing a policy that would open big parts of the Atlantic seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico to drilling. But then only a month later, the Deepwater Horizon well blew up. The administration spent all summer essentially trying to catch up with reality. They appointed a group of outside technical advisors who a half dozen times revised their estimates of the size of the oil spill. Ultimately, they decided that 210 million gallons had spilled into the Gulf of Mexico, making it by far the largest marine oil spill in history. The well was finally capped on July 15th. The ultimate environmental cost is still being calculated. It looks like it might not be as severe as the Exxon Valdez spill in 1989 in Alaska, but it appears that there may be long-term damage to the marshes in Louisiana and other parts of the shoreline. This was unquestionably a major human disaster. Hoteliers and other business owners took a big hit. So did the fishing industry.
As fishermen, and not just me, there's so many other fishermen like myself. Their lives are truly impacted.
The government forced BP to put up a $20 billion fund to compensate people. In the end, the spill altered the politics of offshore oil drilling. The Obama administration announced in December that it would not go forward with leases in the eastern Gulf of Mexico and off the Atlantic seaboard. So in a lot of ways, we are back where we started when Mr. Obama took office, with large parts of the American coastline effectively off limits to the oil companies.
A story in tomorrow's Times examines what's better for the environment, buying a real or artificial Christmas tree.
I'm John Collins Rudolph, and I write about the environment for the New York Times. Today we're looking at the environmental impact of artificial Christmas trees versus real Christmas trees. Artificial Christmas trees are on pace to break a record this year. 13 million trees versus about 12 million sold last year. They can also be reused year in and year out, leading some people to believe that the environmental impact is a lot less than using a real Christmas tree. But a Montreal environmental analysis firm found differently. They determined that an artificial Christmas tree would have to be used about 21 years running in order to have less impact in the environment than a real tree. These trees generate oxygen, they create habitat for birds and other animals, and they fix carbon in the soil and in their branches. Artificial trees, on the other hand, are made out of metal and plastic, mostly in Asia, and they can't be recycled. So most of them will ultimately end up in a landfill. Also, the carbon emissions associated with a real tree are just 1/3 of those that come from making an artificial tree and transporting it to the United States. Ultimately, experts say that the impact of a real or an artificial tree is actually pretty minimal. So you should probably just enjoy your tree either way and try and live a little more sustainably in your daily life.
Join us again on Monday for TimesCast.